Hello, today is January 11th, 2020. Let's go over our calls. We had a MEJT target of 32.6630. According to my book, the preferred time frame was Friday. But after I wrote the book, I decided that if we gapped up instead, I would stick with the price printing at some time, but just take a pass on the time. So I wasn't really predicting the number would print on Friday, just that it would print at some time. Anyway, it did print, and it was, as usual, a support resistance area. We typically trade just past the target, so this whole big drop wound up at a support level. That doesn't mean the support's going to hold. We also called for the pattern with the early low. Typically a positive day. That sure looks like it's exactly the opposite. It looks like a typical pattern with the early high. These inversions aren't really supposed to happen. Inversion is a euphemism for saying completely wrong. But I can make it work if I fudge, which I don't like to do. It would be easier to make it work if we gapped up. That isn't impossible because we have a higher MEJT target and we have a futures high which hasn't been seen in regular trading hours. But that being said, gapping up, hitting a higher high, closing downs, typically a rejection of these highs, either take them out fast, which I'm not saying is off the table. Either you take them off fast or you get further declines than we saw Friday. Well, here's what we had. We had an ultimate sell signal. We rallied first. MEJT said it was false. We have this big decline. MEJT says that's false because it's a target of 32.7563, most likely to print on Monday. If we gap down smartly, I'm taking the Monday time off the table, but saying that price will print at some time. If we don't gap down smartly, that's my target for Monday. Well, here's what I said. It sure doesn't look like the early low, even though I can make the times work. It'd be nice if it worked every time, and it really should with that system. Well, we've broken through a number of important trend lines. We broke through this Gann fan line. Typically that means you keep on going higher. We also broke through this very significant trend line connecting the low of wave 1, the high of wave 3, and the high of wave 4. We've stayed over it, so you've broken through resistance. Of course, if you go back under it, it's a false break. This is a pretty strong rally. I'm not going to assume it's a false break at this time. Usually when you have rallies this strong, wave 3 is at least equal to wave 1. And if it's equal to wave 1, it's usually longer. But if it's equal, we'll wind up around 34.63.5. What's interesting is if that's the end of wave 3 and wave 5 truncates, that wave 5 will be exactly twice wave 1. That's for that 34.63 is a number that works, but I'm certain other numbers work too. Now, a number of people are calling for a top here. I'll grant you that sentiment indicators are certainly compatible with the top. Mutual fund cash positions are certainly compatible with the top. But those aren't really pinpoint indicators, and I just take things a day ahead of time. The breadth is just too strong for me to think we're going to drop like a stone here. Now, we do have a DeMark combo sell signal. These things have stopped working, and these last 3 bars don't have to obey all the rules. But So if it happens, you can say the system worked, but it's just failed too many times for me. There are some other things calling for a top here. I don't have enough to call a top. Doesn't mean you won't drop on Monday. Well, Monday's pattern has the early blow. We have mixed signals, and these standard rules apply. Looking for a gap and a fast move outside the range is the commonest. It is positive we have a higher MEJT target, and if the futures high, we haven't seen in regular trading hours. The other side of the coin is we had a gap up, a new all-time high, and a negative close. It's a rejection of the high unless it's reversed promptly. I had the pattern as well, which is typically positive. It sure doesn't look like it. So either we gap up to a new high or lower prices print. And Friday's day-long trend almost always continues into Monday. You're going to be right betting on continuing lower almost every time. But if, and I underline the word if, you gap up smartly instead, it's quite positive. Because when you have negative signals and you reject them, and the trend is still your friend till proven otherwise, when you've got strong negative signals and they fail, you typically, which hasn't happened yet, you typically get a pretty strong move in the other direction. Now, the MEJT system generates targets and support resistance areas, and that's all it does. It isn't really a standalone system. Just like MEJT, RSI, you just use them in conjunction with other things. Now, I intentionally don't recommend specific trades or specific entries because no matter how clearly I state that those aren't part of the system, people aren't going to listen, and they'll assume they are, and they'll hold it against the system. Now, last week, in the chat room, I predicted the market would trade a bit higher and a bit lower, and that any move starting then wouldn't stick. And that call was completely correct, and somebody not familiar with the system tore into me for saying the market would go higher or go lower. It's not what I said, and it's not even a prediction. So if people aren't even going to get that right, and it's stated clearly, I know if I give numbers like this, they're just not going to pay attention to what I say. Anyway, that being said, even though I don't like to recommend trades, the market gave a clear reversal signal Friday by rejecting new all-time highs. If there's follow-through, we could have a significant drop. But if we gap up and print new highs instead, the rejection of the signal is quite bullish. So we have the likelihood of a big move and a low time premium on options. If ever there was a good situation for going long a straddle, which means you buy puts and calls, or you buy stock and you buy puts representing more stock than you bought, this is it. Because if you go far enough out, you won't have much time decay. And if you get a big move, which I think is very likely here, you can make money. I think the risk-reward ratio should be pretty good, depending on the prices one has to pay. Anyway, we're looking for either confirmation of this rejection of the highs by continuing lower, or rejecting this whole Friday pattern by gapping and promptly taking out this high. Those are the two commonest things, and I don't predict what happens overnight. And before the market opens Monday, I think it should be pretty clear which of these two things will happen. Less frequently, we won't have much of a move Monday. It'll happen early Tuesday after trading a little changed. But this could be the start of a large move, and it should be obvious by Monday's open which direction it's going to be, and that's today's call.